In the year 1325, a 21-year-old man left his home in Morocco with nothing but a donkey. He traveled alone, saying goodbye to his parents before setting out on what was meant to be a simple pilgrimage to Mecca. He had planned only a 16-month pilgrimage. Instead, he would not return home for nearly 30 years. Along the way, he survived pirate attacks, deadly plagues, shipwrecks, and the wrath of emperors. Yet he was neither a general nor a conqueror. He was simply a Muslim scholar, driven by faith and an insatiable curiosity about the world. Today, he is widely regarded as the greatest traveler of the Middle Ages, a man who journeyed even farther than Marco Polo. Who was this extraordinary traveler? And what inspired him to devote the best years of his life to exploring a world few people of his time would ever see? Join us on Footsteps of the Ancients as we uncover one of history's greatest adventures. A summer morning in the year 1325, the massive gates of Tangier, a city in northern Morocco, slowly creaked open. A 21-year-old man stepped through, leading a small donkey. He carried little more than a change of clothes, a handful of coins, and a few precious books. Before taking another step, he turned for one last look at his homeland. His goal was simple: to reach Mecca and complete the sacred pilgrimage expected of every devout Muslim. No one could have imagined that nearly 30 years would pass before he would see those city gates again. History would remember him as Ibn Battuta. Leaving Tangier, Ibn Battuta quickly discovered that the journey would be far harsher than he had imagined. The deserts of North Africa stretched endlessly before him. By day, the scorching sun drained every ounce of strength. By night, the cold crept into his bones. Only a short time after setting out, he fell gravely ill. In the Rihla, he later wrote, "I had no companion whose companionship I might find comfort in. If God decrees my death, then my death shall be on the road, with my face set towards Mecca." So weak that he had to tie himself to the saddle to keep from falling. Yet he refused to turn back. Step by step, he kept moving toward Mecca. After weeks of hardship, Ibn Battuta finally reached Egypt. In Alexandria, he visited a respected Sufi mystic named Sheikh Burhanuddin. The old man smiled and made an extraordinary prediction. "One day, you will meet my brothers in India, China, and Persia. Give them my greetings." At the time, Ibn Battuta could scarcely imagine traveling beyond his pilgrimage. Yet those words would follow him for the rest of his life. Continuing south, he beheld the mighty Nile for the first time, a ribbon of life flowing through an endless sea of desert. He stood beneath the pyramids, monuments that had already endured for thousands of years. Standing before these ancient wonders, he realized that the world was far greater than he had ever imagined. From Egypt, Battuta joined merchant caravans through Jerusalem and Damascus, continuing south toward the Arabian Peninsula. After more than a year on the road, the sacred city of Mecca finally appeared before him, the holiest city in Islam. There, he found himself among a sea of pilgrims from every corner of the Islamic world. Persians, Egyptians, Turks, Syrians, all gathered around the Kaaba, the sacred sanctuary at the heart of the Grand Mosque. Here, Ibn Battuta completed the Hajj, the pilgrimage every able Muslim hopes to undertake at least once in a lifetime. He circled the Kaaba, offered his prayers, met renowned scholars, and spent weeks learning and reflecting in the holy city. For most pilgrims, this was the end of the journey. They would soon begin the long road home. But Ibn Battuta chose a different path. Standing in the heart of Mecca, surrounded by pilgrims from every corner of the Islamic world, it was impossible not to wonder. If the Islamic world was this vast, how much larger and more wondrous must the world beyond it be? Why stop here? From that very moment, a simple pilgrimage became an extraordinary journey of discovery, one that would continue for nearly 30 years. After years of traveling across the Islamic world, Ibn Battuta still had no desire to stop. This time his journey carried him across Anatolia to Constantinople, the magnificent capital of the Byzantine Empire, one of the greatest cities in medieval Europe. Beyond its towering walls lay an entirely different world. For the first time, he spent an extended period living within a great Christian civilization. Everywhere he looked, magnificent churches, shimmering mosaics, and bustling public squares surrounded him, so different from the Muslim cities he had known. With the same curiosity and respect he showed wherever he traveled, Ibn Battuta carefully recorded the customs, architecture, and daily life of the Byzantine people. For him, every journey opened not only a new road, but a new way of seeing the world. But the East was still calling. In 1333, nearly 8 years after leaving his home in Morocco, Ibn Battuta set out once again, this time for India, a land of immense wealth, powerful sultans, and dangers unlike anything he had ever faced. In 1333, after nearly 8 years of wandering across countless lands, Ibn Battuta finally arrived in India. His destination was Delhi, the capital of the Delhi Sultanate, one of the richest and most powerful empires in Asia. He watched elephants hauling heavy loads through the city gates, merchants trading spices and silk, and crowded bazaars alive with countless languages and colorful robes. The air was filled with the sounds of bargaining, distant prayers, and the endless movement of a city unlike anything he had ever seen before. For Ibn Battuta, this was far more than another stop along the road. It was the place where his destiny was about to change. Years of travel had given him more than remarkable stories. They had earned him a reputation as a respected scholar and a deep knowledge of Islamic law. It was a reputation that would soon change the course of his life. In Delhi, Ibn Battuta quickly impressed the Sultan with his scholarship and mastery of Islamic law. Before long, Ibn Battuta was appointed Qadi, an Islamic judge of the royal court, a position of immense prestige that even many local scholars could only dream of attaining. From a traveler in a foreign land, he had become a guardian of justice at the heart of one of India's greatest capitals. His new position brought him into the splendor of the royal court, where he witnessed power, ceremony, and privileges few outsiders would ever experience. But life at court was never without danger. Under the Delhi Sultanate, power and fear walked hand in hand. Then, the inevitable happened. After being linked to a scholar who had fallen from the Sultan's favor, Ibn Battuta became entangled in the court's political intrigues. For a time, he was placed under house arrest, uncertain whether he would regain his freedom or lose his life. But instead of condemning him, the Sultan made a surprising decision. He pardoned Ibn Battuta and entrusted him with an extraordinary mission, to lead a diplomatic embassy to China. Leaving Delhi behind, Ibn Battuta set out once more. This time, the road ahead was more than a diplomatic mission. It would carry him across the Indian Ocean toward lands even farther from home. In 1341, Ibn Battuta left Delhi as an envoy of the Delhi Sultanate, carrying precious gifts intended for the emperor of the Yuan dynasty. But fate had other plans. While traveling with an advance caravan to the coast, Ibn Battuta and his companions were attacked by bandits. Ibn Battuta lost everything he personally owned, escaping into the forest with nothing but his life. He eventually found his way back to the embassy with the help of local villagers. The worst, however, was yet to come. As the embassy prepared to leave India, a violent storm swept across the sea. The ship carrying most of the imperial gifts, and many of the envoys, was lost. In a single day, the diplomatic mission collapsed. With no embassy left to lead, Ibn Battuta faced a choice: return home, or continue as he always had, a traveler. He chose the horizon. Once again, the Indian Ocean became his home. His first destination was the Maldives. Surrounded by turquoise lagoons and coral islands, he had intended to stay only briefly. Instead, the islanders invited him to serve as their Qadi, their Islamic judge. For months, he settled disputes, learned the customs of the islands, and carefully recorded the lives of the people who called this tropical paradise home. From the Maldives, he sailed to Sri Lanka. There, he climbed the mountain Muslims know as Adam's Peak, believed by many to bear the very first footprint of Adam after his descent from paradise. His journey then carried him farther east. Merchant ships brought him through the thriving ports of Southeast Asia, where traders from India, China, and the Indonesian archipelago met along some of the busiest maritime routes in the medieval world. At last, Ibn Battuta reached China, under the rule of the Yuan dynasty. Like Marco Polo before him, He marveled at its immense cities, crowded marketplaces, and vast network of canals that bound the empire together. But the China he encountered was no longer the empire Marco Polo had known. When Marco Polo arrived, Kublai Khan ruled at the height of Mongol power. By Ibn Battuta's time, the Yuan dynasty was already weakening under the weight of famine, natural disasters, and growing rebellions. Little more than a decade after his departure, the dynasty would collapse forever. 30 years had passed. The young man who had left Tangier at the age of 21 had become one of the greatest travelers of his time. Across the deserts of North Africa, across the waters of the Red Sea, across the vast Indian Ocean, across the legendary Silk Road, his footsteps carried him more than 120,000 kilometers across 3 continents, one of the greatest journeys ever undertaken by a single person in the medieval world. But after all those years, one final road still awaited him. The road home. After nearly 30 years of constant travel, Ibn Battuta finally decided to return home to Morocco. But the world he was returning to was no longer the one he had left behind. A devastating plague was sweeping across Asia, Europe, and North Africa. It would become known as the Black Death. As Ibn Battuta made his long journey home, he passed through lands still scarred by the pandemic. Bustling marketplaces had fallen silent. Abandoned houses stood where lively villages had once been. The great trade routes, once crowded with endless caravans, had grown eerily quiet. Every mile brought him closer to home, yet also revealed how profoundly the world had changed in his absence. When he finally reached Tangier in 1349, nearly 3 decades had passed since he had left as a young man of 21. At last, the journey he had begun so many years before had finally come to an end. There, he learned that his father had died during the plague. His mother had survived longer, waiting for the son who had left home so many years before. But she too had passed away, only a few months before his return. The reunion he had dreamed of would never come. He had finally found his way home, only to discover that home had already changed forever. Perhaps that was the greatest price Ibn Battuta ever paid for a lifetime of extraordinary journeys. Yet Ibn Battuta's story was not over. In the years that followed, he journeyed to Al-Andalus and crossed the Sahara to the Mali Empire, completing the final chapters of a lifetime of exploration. Eventually, Ibn Battuta returned to his homeland of Morocco. In 1354, at the command of the Sultan of Morocco, Ibn Battuta dictated the story of his travels to the scholar Ibn Juzay, who compiled them into the Rihla, the journey. The Rihla is far more than a travel diary. It preserves the memory of a world that no longer exists, its cities, its civilizations, its customs, its people. Without the Rihla, countless details of the medieval world might have been lost forever. Today, Ibn Battuta is remembered as one of history's greatest travelers. Over nearly 3 decades, he crossed North Africa, the Middle East, East Africa, Europe, India, Southeast Asia, and China, covering more than 120,000 kilometers, and leaving behind one of the most extraordinary records of the 14th century world. His journey reminds us that curiosity, courage, and the willingness to step into the unknown can carry an ordinary person far beyond the limits of their own time. The world is always larger than we imagine, and only by daring to leave the place where we were born can we truly discover where we belong within it. It all began on a summer morning in 1325, when a 21-year-old man quietly walked through the gates of Tangier, never imagining that he was about to embark on one of the greatest journeys in human history. What do you think was the greatest price Ibn Battuta paid for his extraordinary journey? And was it worth it? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. One legendary path connected them all. Before Marco Polo, before Ibn Battuta, there was only danger, divided empires, and an untamed world. In our next documentary, we travel back to the very beginning, to a time of deadly secret missions, shifting alliances, and the blood, sweat, and silver that forged the greatest trade network in human history. Subscribe to Footsteps of the Ancients, and join us next Saturday as we uncover the birth of the Silk Road.